Здравейте на всички, тук сме с народния представител Мария Илиева, аз се казвам Радослав Иванов и днес ние ще ви представим интервюто с професор Стив Ханке, който е бащата на валутния борд. Човека, заради когото ние имаме финансова дисциплина като държава. Връзката ни с него се породи поради факта, че той няма трибуна къде да изрази своето мнение по повод решението на Европейската комисия и на българското правителство. Стив Ханке получава абсолютно затъмнение от медиите за това да изрази своето мнение и той като баща на валутния борд се чувства изключително обиден от Европейската комисия, от българската държавност и същевременно от българските медии.
Да, мога да добавя, че човека, благодарение на който валутния борд, който в България вече работеше до сега много успешно и успя да ни предпази от хиперинфлация, от печатане на пари и от такива фалити на банки, които ние наблюдавахме през 1997, изключително дисциплинира финансите и работехме в една много здравословна финансова рамка. Е човека, който би трябвало, според нас, да бъде попитан в този момент кое е добре за България и кое не, защото той вече е доказал, че съветите, които е давал и не само на българския народ, но и на президент Петър Стоянов са били успешни и са ни докарали до положението, в което се намираме в момента с един от най-ниските дългове в Европа.
Понеже медиите няма да отразят това, което ще видите, Свободен глас е трибуната, в която ние ще отразим това интервю с Стив Ханке. То ще бъде на английски, с български субтитри. Споделяйте го и нека повече хора да видят какво е мнението на бащата на валутния борд за това, което се случва с българския лев и с насилственото и абсолютно измамно въвеждане на еврото в България.
Greetings, Professor Hanke. Thank you so much for taking the time. Our first question to you is how many international media outlets and national media outlets asked you about your personal opinion as the father of the currency board? What's going to happen to Bulgaria if it enters the Eurozone?
The Bulgarian press has been radio silent, basically. It's very clear either the Bulgarian press is incompetent or the other option is that they've been instructed to not do an interview. One of the two, there are only two possibilities. It could be that they're just incompetent and have no idea about the history of the currency board, how it was formed and so forth. Because remember, the first book I ever wrote on the currency board for Bulgaria and the design and architecture of the whole system we put in eventually in July of 1997. I did that in 1991. So most of the journalists, they weren't even born then. And they tend to be quite sloppy too. So they wouldn't go back and look at documents and things like that. So it's possible that they were just uninformed, shall we say. But the other possibility is that they were told by their bosses to not do an interview with the father of the currency board. That's Bulgarian press. The international press is a little bit different. There weren't that many stories about this in the international press. I was interviewed a few times by the international press, but again, the international stories were not too prevalent.
Okay, Mr. Hannke. Now let's imagine that we are the Bulgarian government and we are now asking you to advise us. Is it a good time for Bulgaria to enter into the Eurozone or not right now, knowing the numbers?
Well, as you know, the currency board has operated very well. Number one, it crushed one of the worst hyperinflations in world history. The inflation rate, remember, prior to our installation of the currency board was peaked out at 242% per month, not per year, per month. And within a month, we crushed the inflation, got it down to high single digits in 30 days. In 1 year, the nominal money market rate had gone down to 2% in Bulgaria in 1 year. And the foreign reserves had exploded and had tripled, 3 times larger than they were when they put in the currency board. So that was the initial positive shock. It stabilized everything in Bulgaria. from a macroeconomic point of view. Then the next thing, there were many currency crises, international currency crises. We had, remember, the Russian ruble, that was a big crisis. Then we had the Asian financial crisis. Then we had the Great Financial Crisis. We've had many crises, and the currency board has worked very well throughout all those big international crises. Then you had one banking crisis, as you know, Maria, the commercial bank crisis, and bank run in Bulgaria, and the currency board did very well in that case. And by the way, the cause of the bank problem had nothing to do with the currency board or what they call the issue department at the Bulgarian National Bank. It was the regulations at the Bulgarian National Bank that were a problem, not the issue department, not the currency board. So everything is run very well. And if you look at the projections for the next 7 years for economic growth, GDP per capita, we end up with Bulgaria having one of the highest rates of anybody in the EU. Those models were all based on the premise that the currency board would stay in place. The per capita GDP growth over the next 7 years is factored in by the IMF using IMF models at 3.25% on average. Now, there's only one country there are two countries in the EU that are slightly, a tiny bit above that, and one is Croatia and the other is Malta. All the others are way lower. So there's no problem whatsoever with the system from a technical point of view. What about the political point of view? Well, the Bulgarian public has always wanted to retain the currency board and the lev and not join the euro at this point. So both from a technical point of view and from a public perception or public desires point of view, it's a bad idea to go to the euro now.
So why do you think it happened now? Why now? Why under such an urgency?
This is all a political game, and the political game, there are two aspects to this. One is the Bulgarian political game, and that is that Bulgaria's representative democracy does not work very well. The politicians don't represent the people, and the Bulgarians, of course, they know this. The Bulgarian public is not stupid. They know this, and that's why they don't even go to vote. The voting turnout's very, very low in Bulgaria because they know that the politicians don't represent them, and they perceive the politicians as being completely corrupt. So the whole system is very corrupt, and the political system, and the only way to actually correct that is for large issues like the switch from the lev to the euro, all those big decisions should be made with direct democracy by referenda. So you let the Bulgarian public vote directly. And by the way, if they were allowed to do that, a lot of Bulgarians would go to the polls. The number of people participating in democracy in Bulgaria would go way, way up. So that's one political aspect. Now, the other is a more geopolitical aspect. The big imperial power is the United States, and the big imperial power tells Europe what to do, and Europe also tells Bulgaria what to do. Bulgaria is basically a vassal state. So for big geopolitical things, Bulgaria, the politicians have nothing to say about it. They do what they're told to do. That's it. So either Brussels tells them to do something, or the United States tells them to do something. On the currency issue, it was a European initiative and approval. Remember, this was going very slowly, and the Brussels was resisting, and all of a sudden everything changed. It changed because of the Ukraine war with Russia, in my view, and the political class was able to wrap the currency transfer issue into a Russia versus Europe issue. And I think that's the reason everything accelerated, and that's my analysis. Even in some interviews that were done with me, they were asking, well, Hanke, you're pro-Russian? Is that what the thing? You're for the Lev because you're pro-Russian? And I said, what's that have to do with anything? What, as they say, what's that have to do with the price of bread? Russia has nothing to do with the Lev. You know, it's a Bulgarian sovereign entity, the currency, and the political class has decided on orders from Brussels that they would switch.
Okay, so just to close this economic chapter, you're saying that economically, Bulgaria right now does not need to do anything to kind of improve the country itself by moving into the Eurozone. So it's
remember,
working well, the figures going up, the economic growth, the GDP, the debt also. So we are not pressed, we are not forced, we don't need to do this right now.
No, there's no crisis. Everything is running perfectly, and this is a very important fact. This is a crucial fact. With the currency board, de facto, you are in the Eurozone. You are de facto part. You're not de jure. Now you will be de jure. And the problem with that is that you will never get out. With the currency board, you had option. You had the option of changing the anchor. If the euro went very bad, you could change it to the dollar, or you could change it to gold or something else. Now that's finished. So you've destroyed in Bulgaria all of your currency options. You're in what we call the Hotel California. You can check in, but you can't check out.
The people around are asking what is going to happen, and Rado can say, I mean, we are receiving questions from people every day. They don't know, they just want to have some realistic picture what to expect.
Since you are the architect of the currency board, Professor Hänke, and you're the father of the currency board, could you tell, for an ordinary citizen that's receiving their pension now in Bulgarian lev, like what will happen once Bulgaria enters the Eurozone to their pension, and what will happen to the salaries of the ordinary people, and what will happen to their savings that are in Bulgarian lev?
That I don't have a precise answer to, and I'll tell you why. I haven't done the detailed sharp pencil work involved for that kind of for a conclusion. And the reason I haven't done that, I, along with Jacques de la Rosière, former managing director of the IMF, former governor of the Bank of France, former president of eBird, and John Greenwood, who was the architect and father of Hong Kong's currency board that was put in 1983. The three of us did propose to do an expert's study that would have allowed us to answer the question that you just asked me. And we said that we would do that free, pro bono, but we would only do it if we were asked by an element of the state, an official thing, the government, the Bulgarian National Bank, the parliament, the president. If any of those entities or individuals would have asked us, we would have done an expert's report. And this gets to the point. There is no expert's report. So
you're
so
saying
I can't answer the question. I haven't done the work.
And you're saying that no Bulgarian institution from the ones that you listed ever came to you to ask for such a report, even though they knew it would be pro bono?
Absolutely, and it was announced in the parliament, by the way. This became very public. All the politicians in Bulgaria knew about this, but they're such cowards and so corrupt that there was this silence, just a stonewall, not even a polite reaction to the three of us. I mean, you have three people. Taking me out of the picture, you have two very distinguished people in Greenwood and de la Rosière. I mean, after all, Jacques de la Rosière was on the Delors committee that established the euro. You have one of the most distinguished economists and financial people in all of Europe that was on my team. He's a fellow, by the way, at Johns Hopkins University in my institute. Greenwood is also a fellow at Johns Hopkins University at my institute. With the three of us have worked together many times on many things, and the Bulgarians were just silent,
which proves the fact that the government now in power are not capable to take expert opinions and to take decisions based on these expert opinions for the benefits of the Bulgarians, right?
And
no, the politicians did not want any transparent experts report by three acknowledged experts. You've got three big experts offered to do the report for free, so there was no money involved. Everything I do, by the way, just to be clear, when I advise politicians, it's always pro bono. That's my rule. And that was the case when I was President Stoyanov's advisor, chief advisor, and put in the currency board. From 1997 until 2002, I was Stoyanov's chief advisor. And there was this was zero. There was nothing paid. No expenses were even paid. I paid everything myself. So that's the way it works. Of course, that's the way I work, but that's not the way Bulgarian politicians usually work.
But generally, having in mind that Bulgaria is the poorest country in Europe, we have 2.5 up to 3 times lower salary than the other Europeans, but the prices of the goods, consumer goods, are more or less similar. How that will reflect to the people as 1st of January? Are they going to become poorer, or
well?
How
Maria, unfortunately, that kind of answer would have been contained in an expert's report. Reserves are going to go from Sofia to Frankfurt. And what's that mean? We don't know exactly, but now if the reserves are kept in Sofia, they earn interest. The lev is a very profitable thing because the lev is issued by the currency board, and it's backed 100% with euro-denominated assets or reserves, and those euro-denominated assets make an interest. So that the issue department is very profitable. So that will disappear. So have they ever talked about that in Bulgaria?
What we know as ordinary citizens is that all those reserves will somehow be stolen, the same way that they've stolen all the other funds that have come from the European Union through, all the different schemes that they have here, the politicians.
Well, let's not use that rhetoric. Let's not say stolen. The Bulgarian politicians have agreed to gift those reserves to the EU.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's all covered with legalese. Nothing was stolen, unless you want to say, well, the politicians in Bulgaria, the political elite stole the money from the bank. This in a way, if you put it that way, it's one of the greatest bank robberies in the history of Bulgaria. But we really don't have to get polemical. we just say the reserves are at the Bulgarian National Bank now. They earn interest, and the levs that are issued don't pay interest. And that difference between the amount that they're earning on the assets that are in euros and the liability, the lev that has no cost except printing the paper and coins, that's a huge profit, and that's going to be transferred.
Plus the gold, plus the securities and everything.
One final question, because people really ask us and they're very worried. Is it finished? Is it over? Like, is there no chance to preserve the currency board and save the lev after the decisions that they've made without having a referendum? Is there any chance?
What are the options?
I think I would put it this way. We're at the cemetery right now, but I don't think they've thrown the dirt in over the coffin quite yet, because there could be one of two things. There could be a referendum. Now it looks like the legal system has shut that off, I think, improperly. That's one option. The other option is that they have a snap election and the government falls. So I think a snap election with the government falling on this very issue would be the way to go. And maybe all the dirt wouldn't be thrown in on top of the coffin then. We'd have to wait and see.
So we have 6 months. I mean, that's
right. Right, and I think that the main thing, you just keep the shovels away from the tenders at the graveyard, and think about maybe a snap election is the way to go.
Okay, and finally, what would you recommend each Bulgarian citizen that is going to watch this interview? What could each ordinary citizen do?
What I have always argued with my Bulgarian friends, and I have many friends in Bulgaria, and they always ask me over time, they say, well, how should we keep our savings? What should we do with our savings? It's wise to keep 50% of your savings in lev denominated assets and 50% in US dollar assets.
So the last question is, what can we do, if something, to stop entering into Eurozone as of 1st of January 2026?
I really have no magic wand at this point. As I say, I think we're at the graveyard. And although the coffin isn't quite covered yet, it looks to me like there's a high probability it will be covered. Unfortunately, as you know, I've been totally against this switch from the lev to the euro. I think it's completely unnecessary and costly. You're going to lose the profits that you were generating at the Bulgarian National Bank with the currency board. That's one problem. And you will lose what we call optionality. You'll lose the option to be flexible and maybe change the anchor. What if something happens to the euro? You would want to, if you had a currency board, you could change to the US dollar or some other anchor that was more suitable. Now that's over. If it's after 6 months, that really will be over. And I noticed, by the way, that the Bulgarian National Bank already, even in the last day, is starting to mint Bulgarian euro coins. So everything is moving. Everything is in gear, and the Bulgarian public, of course, is just left out in the cold. The Bulgarian public has been completely ignored. The only thing the politicians have paid attention to is what's happening in Brussels.
Understood. Well, we'll be fighting for the referendum as much as we can by the end of the year, and do everything that we can to internationally raise as much noise as we can and get more international media outreach so that the scandals that are happening here and the denial of referendum for the people, it needs to come out so that the international press would know.
Well, in that regard, on this July 11th, allow me to wish you luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.